Tybalt, here slay, whom Romeo's hand did slay. Romeo that spoke him fair bade him bethink how nice this quarrel was, and urged with all your high displeasure. All this uttered, with gentle breath, calm look, knees humbly bowed. Could not take truce with the unruly spleen of Tybalt, deaf to peace, but that he tilts with piercing steel at bold Mercutio's breast, who all is hot turns deadly, point to point, and with a martial scorn. With one hand he beats cold death aside, and with the other sends it back to Tybalt, whose dexterity retorts it. Romeo, he cries, hold, friends, friends part, and swifter than his tongue, his agile arm beats down their fatal points, and twixt them rushes, underneath whose arm an envious thrust from Tybalt hits the life of stout Mercutio. And then Tybalt fled. But by and by comes back to Romeo, who had but newly founded revenge, and to it they go like lightning, for ere I could draw to part them, was stout Tybalt slain. And as he fell, did Romeo turn and fly. This is the truth, or let Benvolio die.
So what you saw there was a monologue. This is something that I have to practice a lot as a theater major in college. I just did that for an audition for Macbeth, actually. Still waiting to get the audition list, call list, waiting to see which role I got. We'll find out later. But so that was called acting, and the main part of that one is to act like I actually care about what I said. And I think that being an actor and a theater major is something that's really difficult to just be able to kind of go up on stage and be able to believe in what you're saying and make other people believe what you're saying. I think that's the more important part. Being able to make other people believe what you are saying and believe that it is real and that it has an impact on you. And I think the only people who are able to create such a false imagination, like such a strong false imagination, are people that enjoy the hit game Yu-Gi-Oh! So, I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. I like Yu-Gi-Oh! But there's the one issue on the idea that it sucks. And now, a lot of people, right now, as I'm saying this, this is during the Tier 0 format of Tierlaments. This is after, I believe, Darkwing Blast was the most recent one that got released, the most recent core set, I believe. Photon Hyperspace, something like that, is set to come out by February. But right now, people think Yu-Gi-Oh! Suck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Sucks up. And I'm here to give you the counter-argument that it always sucked. You just didn't notice. There has never been a consecutive format where someone was like, wow, I really like the state that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in. Because people like to think, wow, when Yu-Gi-Oh! Was first coming out, it must have been such a relaxing and peaceful game. No. No, it wasn't. Half the ban list, currently, to this day, have cards that came from maybe the first, second, and third core sets of Yu-Gi-Oh! Delinquent Duo, Pot of Greed. That's all I can think about. But ask someone who has roughly no life and a YouTube channel, and they can probably tell you what other cards were banned that were first released when those sets came out. That was ruthless. People would spend $300 on Mechanical Chaser. Mechanical Chaser is a card that is level 4 with no effects and doesn't even have 1900 attack points. Do you want to know why they spent money on that card? Because it was one of the strongest normal summons you could have during the day. Normal Yu-Gi-Oh! Matches back then, when the game first came out, you would just sit and wait. Someone just sat and wait until they could activate a trap to kill you. And then you lost. At least now when you lose, it's after like 2 turns. Granted, those 2 turns are 30 minutes each because each combo takes about 15 minutes. But it's certainly quicker and it's more efficient. But I've seen a lot of people just complain all around about the Yu-Gi-Oh series, and I don't know, and sometimes it's piqued my interest because I'll complain about it to other people, but those people have a life, and they don't know what I'm talking about sometimes. And so I kind of just like to talk about the idea of why is Yu-Gi-Oh so bad? Why is it not fun? And that's going to come from me, a person who's been playing Yu-Gi-Oh for roughly about a year now. I knew about it as a kid, was really interested in the shows, and I got into it recently again. But let's talk about why it's bad. First of all, let's get in the idea of a little fun thing I like to call short printing. So, this little beauty is called Baron de Fleur. Now, or Baron, it's French, so I don't care. But this little beauty, I believe at its max was maybe $150, $200 for a while. That's because this is an omni-negate for synchro summons that doesn't have any locking, where some cards will be like, okay, you can summon this card, but for the rest of this turn, you can only summon cards that are like this. This card doesn't have that effect. So you'll be like, okay, I understand why people really like it, but is it really $150 worth? Couldn't you just find your own? You'd think that, but no, because Konami, the industry that's created the game, they have a fun little thing called short printing. What is short printing? Well, that's simple. Um, there's essentially two different versions of Yu-Gi-Oh! There's the OCG and TCG. In America, we have the TCG. In Asia, we have the OCG. OCG is where all the cards come from first, and then later, those cards will later be dispersed into the TCG. And what they can do from this method is that they can see which cards are the most powerful. And then when they sprinkle them into the TCG, they'll be like, okay, this card did really good in the OCG. So when we give this to you, we're going to make sure that you can only get this guy maybe one in every 100 packs, when normally it'd be 150 packs. Why are we doing this? Well, it's because we hate our customers and the people that like playing our game. We hate this just as much as you do. So we're going to make sure that you never get this. And if you do, and you want it, give me your wallet. Just give me your wallet. And that's been a practice that's been going around ever since the Necros era, I believe. Circa... I don't even know. I wasn't there when it happened. But that was the first time short printing was really noticed. And it's something that happens now. There's even such things where there'll be cards that were maybe just a common rarity in the OCG, and when they're brought into the TCG, they're secret rare, which is one of the most difficult rarities you can pull. And once again, why are they doing this? So you spend more money. Because once again, they hate you. And they're trying to stop you from playing this game. And you should listen to them. But you're not gonna. And that's okay. Because I'm not either. But going into other things, we have the idea of power creep. Now, other card games such as Magic the Gathering or Pokemon will have this thing called rotation or set rotations, where in like kind of tournaments like legal standard tournaments that are made by the companies, the way that the games will work is that they'll say, okay, so you can make a deck with the 3 or 5 most current sets. You have to make a deck with only the cards in there. And when a new set comes in, the oldest set comes out of rotation. And you can't use those cards from that set anymore. And it's fun. It spices it up. Sorry for that. Anyway, it's fun. It spices things up. It constantly keeps you on your toes. But there's the other idea people can argue that because of that, you have to keep on constantly buying, and that even if you have a really good deck that could still be used for today's gameplay, if it was a deck that was made 12 sets ago, even if it's still really good and can compete against top decks now, you can't use it anymore. That's not in rotation. I'm sorry, man. And that sucks for some people, because if they want to stay in the meta, they're going to have to consistently keep buying. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't do that. You can use any card from any set as long as it's not on the ban list. You could go all the way to when it was first picked. You could pick up, I don't know what cards they had back then. I don't know, you could pick up a Dark Magician and just keep playing even now, even if it's really bad. So the issue to resolve this, though, is that if they had one really, really good set, people would just be like, okay, I'm going to only buy from this set. They're not going to buy the new sets because that's the set that's really winning things. So they do this little thing called power creep. What is power creep? Well, it's where eventually through the ages, cards will get more and more powerful, and eventually some cards will become obsolete. For example, let's show off a fun guy, Crystal Beast. I have a Crystal Beast deck right here. So we have things like Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus. He has a fun little ability where when you bring him out, he's going to put the monsters in the spell and trap zones. And the main idea, at least with most decks for Crystal Beast nowadays, is that once you get enough cards in the spell and trap zone, you're going to bring out your little friend Ruby Carbuncle. And when Ruby Carbuncle gets on the field, the monsters that are in the spell and trap zone, they're going to go out and attack the opponent, and hopefully you win in that round. Very simple strategy, but the cards don't do anything big. They'll usually just try to give you cards that have strong attack, and they're gonna beat the crap out of the opponent, and you win. It's that simple. Now, let's look at a more modern deck. This is a Speedroid deck. This is the main deck that I like to use. I haven't used it in a tournament ever since Power of the Elements came out because it'd just be wasting money if I tried to go into a tournament with this. But to give you an idea, let's look at a card that most people will use for their Speedroid decks. Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. This is a card that can negate 2 of your opponent's effects every turn, or about 2 of their effects, I would say. Somewhere around that. Anyway, it can negate any effect that your opponent makes. Anything. It doesn't matter. And then if you fight an opponent's monster who's around level 5 or higher, it can just completely destroy it. And it has 3,000 attack. It has a 3,000 attack, and it is incredibly easy to summon. This is power creep. Something as simple as Sapphire Pegasus or the Crystal Beast original Beatdown. If you brought a deck from 2008 to fight a deck now, they'd get obliterated. It's just that simple. In a really weird way. Even going back on it, like I said, Baron de Fleur, it's an Omni-Negate. It can negate cards, I believe, once per turn, and then destroy any card on the field once per turn as well. And it's at 0 cost. There was nothing like this a few years back. I think the most powerful cards back then would be things like Salamangrates, where their most powerful abilities would be things around you could turn someone's attack points down. Nowadays, Salamangrates are horrible. Even if they had their most strongest cards unbanned, they would do nothing still, honestly. They'd maybe barely affect competitive, but they can't do much. So, that's really the main idea, though. Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of sucks. If you like playing it for fun, then that's great. Do what you like if it makes you happy. But if you're trying to get into it because people are telling you it's fun, they're lying to you. You shouldn't have friends that lie to you. That's bad. But just take everything I say into consideration. The next time someone comes up to you and says, hey, I think you should learn how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! It's really fun. Remember that someone with a theater major looked you in the eyes and said, no, it's not. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not fun. Remember that. For me. All right. Thank you.